Hello, and welcome to Pat O'Keefe's World of Curiosities. Tonight we have a very special friend, and her name is Stephanie Fox Dusing. Stephanie, good to have you with us. Now you are a Hellenistic astrologer. So tell us, what does that mean?
So there are most people, when they look up their birth charts, it's a modern take on astrology. It uses a different house system where Hellenistic goes back to like the ancient teachings. And Hellenistic
And when you
astrology,
said ancient teachings, we're going all the way back to Mesopotamia or where?
it starts about 1st century BCE to about 7th century BE, and we have ancient Mesopotamian and Egyptians doing these creating birth charts.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the basis that is built on from the ancient teachings.
Mm.
So it has a very strong tie to like the Mediterranean area at that time.
And how long have you been doing that?
I actually, when I started with more of the modern astrologer take, but for whatever reason, the house system did not resonate with me. So I did a little bit more research, and about 3 years ago, I found the Hellenistic teaching and the whole sign system, and it was like every single thing that I didn't get fell into place. And it has been an everyday study since then.
Well, do you think that your connection, because you were obviously seeking a connection to a style of astrology, so you knew your path was astrology at that point. Do you think your connection to such an ancient astrological uh, type of charting, could it have arisen from a past life that you may have lived? Have you ever felt connected to that era?
I am a very true Sagittarius. And I only do what I'm drawn to, what inspires me, what like feels like home. So the that region has always intrigued me. The fact that I was immediately drawn to the ancient teachings of astrology does not surprise me. There is, if somebody told me that even my namesake or a past life sake had a connection to that time period, I would not be surprised. It would actually bring me a lot of joy.
Have you ever had any sort of dreams or memories that may not have been your own that were connected to that time or to another time?
I had a dream in high school. It's so funny that you bring this up. I thought this was the end, and I had just had a premonition of my death. For like 2 solid weeks, I went to school every day, like, this is it, guys. This is it, guys. There was a strange man, and he was royalty. And in the dream, it was in the desert. It was like an Egyptian desert. But like in the dream, all these weird, like modern times and ancient times were combined. And I could definitely tell that this man that was in my dream was royalty, and it was like a marriage of convenience. And I was in this dream barren. And he abandoned me because I couldn't carry on with an heir. And I mean, as you know, in the ancient times, that happened a lot, which is why a lot of royalty had several wives or mistresses so they could have as many heirs as they could. And in this dream, I could not have a child, so I was abandoned. And the dream opens in a desert with just me and this man.
How old, how old do you feel you were in that dream?
I was in high school, so I was probably 16 when I had it, but I was definitely probably around that age, 16 to 18 max.
You know, it's really interesting that you mentioned that, and you were foretelling or connecting with the death that you had had during that lifetime, is what it appears. I did the same thing, only my age was 42. And I just knew I was going to die at 42. You know, there was this just knowledge about that. And like you, I had things that kind of came together so that I realized that I was afraid of death at that age because I had lived through it in a past life. That's why I ask those questions. That's so interesting. What is the most fascinating thing that you found out about yourself from astrology?
Probably it's not an easy topic that I found out. When you're a true Sagittarius, and I have a Sagittarius stellium, which means I have several planets in Sagittarius. It is not an easy thing to admit that the way your chart is set up, that this life cycle is not your own, that there's a ton of fate and a ton of service to others built into your chart. So even though I have free will and I have my freedoms, and freedom and truth are like the key words of Sagittarius, a lot of the important things that I will do in my lifetime will involve the things that I do for others and the moves that I'm supposed fated aspect, and not some of the choices that I have actually made.
Do you think that that's also past life, that maybe you have some karmic, things that you
Absolutely.
need to do?
Absolutely. Um, my chart's just set up that way.
Mm.
The more I got into reading charts, I can just see the shape of a chart and just the whole, like, everything comes together in one flash moment where I'm like, this is the baseline of this person's existence. And I know that some readers can't read for themselves the longer they do this, but I still can. And one day it just clicked with me why my chart is the way that I am, and why sometimes I push against what feels like fate and it just doesn't work out for me when I do.
I will tell you, it's so interesting because we look at what we do, and sometimes we know the path that we should be on, and we fight against that path.
Yeah.
We do. Like for me, I've been told by Spirit, and I know that my path is one that I have to walk by myself.
Yes.
And yet I am such a raging extrovert. I don't like to do that. I love to have all these people in my life, professionally too. And yet, I'm told time and time again, no, you need to walk this path by yourself. And it's like when I do, then I feel fully grounded. I feel that things happen in the order that they should happen in, um, rather than fighting against my base nature, which is I'm an extrovert. I want people there. What has it been like for you? Because you know that your path is to serve. Have you ever gotten off that path and then back on it, realizing that that's where you should have stayed to begin with?
The more that I try to do, I'm not good at selling myself. I'm not good at promoting myself. I'm just not very good at it. And I have tried over the years to push myself to become more comfortable with it. And the more I do, the more uncomfortable I am. But no matter what the circumstances are, when somebody's in need and they need help, I've never struggled with that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's kind of like living in alignment. I'm a Cancer rising, so my character is that of the nurturer, the mother.
Mhm.
And trying to live out of alignment with that has only ever brought me struggles.
Mhm.
But when I lean into it and I'm just like, okay, I need to concentrate more on what I can provide for people than selling myself, that
Mhm.
works out more for me than any new verbiage I learn or more speeches I learn or seminars that I give. It's the one-on-one with clients.
Mhm.
And word of mouth, when I try to sell myself, I'm not good at it. It makes me extremely uncomfortable. But just knowing that one client enjoyed a reading enough to go to another and be like, this person also needs help. Not because it was entertaining, even though some of my readings are entertaining, but because they know of another person in need and thinks that I have the knowledge or the wisdom to be able to pass on to them from reading their chart to be able to help them with their struggles.
Well, let me ask, what is the worst chart? And of course, don't give names, but what was the worst chart that you've ever read for someone?
There's a lot of trigger charts. People that are 12th house heavy, the 12th house is a rough house to deal with. In Hellenistic astrology, it's actually ruled by Saturn. It's called the place of bad fortune. That tends to come with a lot of mental health issues. And some of them are when you're dealing with someone with prominent mental health issues, if they've sunken so far deep, it's very difficult, and especially in one sitting, to be able to try to bring them out of it. People that have some of those characteristics of stubbornness built in, no matter what I tell them, I already know from looking at their chart that information is gonna fall on deaf ears, but I still have to try. Um, I will say that mutable sign heavy is difficult in times, because mutable signs, so we have Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, they can flip flop. They're very moldable. So I can have an appointment with them and then meet with them 6 months, and it's like they're in their different personality. But on the whole, difficult ones, except for the ones that I know that are not ready to hear what I'm telling them yet, or aren't going to do anything with that information. And a lot of times it's the Aries risings, because that puts Pisces as the ruler of their 12th house. And that is that mental health issue going deep into the subconscious.
What about what about the best types of signs that you can discover within a chart for someone? What makes you happy to see in someone's chart?
I like to see, sometimes I meet with clients before their Saturn return. And that's a period that happens to you for about 2.5 to 3 years, between the ages of 28 and 30. Um, and like, I can see the struggle that they're going to go through, and I can see whether or not they are prepared for it or not. And I try to prepare for it. But my favorite is getting those clients who are now in the healing process, when they have just come off of their Saturn return, and to see like the life lessons that they have learned from that. um, it's the growth process that I see in charts, and knowing and being able to like identify and talk to them about where they came from and the struggles that they had, and then like the good things that they have to look forward to from here on out. And then someone who's going through a bad transit, being able to point out how Jupiter is helping them with their good fortune in this location, or how Venus is bringing them the people that they need into their life to help them through bad times. So I like to see when people are going through that transformative period, and now they're actually going out there actively seeking the extra tools that they need to be able to carry on and to grow from those experiences. Because when I look at a chart, I hate to say it, the first thing I see is the trauma every time. So I love to see that growth process. It's my favorite thing.
When looking at a chart, what are there any signs that would point to someone being born what I call a natural witch, just connected to the other side?
Deep connections with the water signs, so Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Really prominent signs in the ninth house. The ninth house is ruled by the sun. It is the place of God. It is where, when we talk about the ninth houses and being in charge of higher education, it's not just like after high school, it's higher education of the self. It is a very spiritual house. So, especially if you put a water sign in the ninth house, there's a deep connection to the spirituality, and it's seen by others because it's in the northern hemisphere of your chart. And the northern hemisphere of your chart is what people see of you. Everything else is personal. When I see people very tied to the moon, if they have prominent moon places, or if they have really good connections from other planets with the moon, having water risings, especially Scorpio rising, helps you have that, your personality is the draw to the other stuff, the occult stuff, the stuff that nobody sees, the stuff that doesn't have names. So that's a big draw for it too. So there are placements that I can see someone who's connected and someone who is has the natural talent.
Hmm. Now that really is the same placements for someone with psychic gifts also, right? A mediumship, that sort of thing.
And that could be anything depending if we're talking about those placements with connections to Mercury, they might be able to hear things. They might be able to speak out loud and things happen. If it's more of a Jupiter, it's an expansion of mind, an expansion of the subconscious. They might be able to, just meditate and have visions. So there are different types depending on the planets involved in these placements, but it's definitely a spiritual or a psychic or a gifts connection depending on the planets involved.
Which which of these signs is the most chill, relaxed?
Taurus, unless angered or deprived of food or comfort. Taurus. I They just really are unbothered unless their personal space comforts or they're hungry. And they're very physical. So Taurus rules the five senses. So, touch is one of their love languages. If they're in a healthy relationship, they're content. They're not making waves in their life. The next one would I will say Pisces, but that's what your interpretation is. What's going on below the surface is not calm. So you might think Pisces are super calm, but if you get into that mental dialogue, they are not.
Hmm. Hmm. One thing I have realized, my niece is a Pisces, and I really consider her a true Pisces. And the one thing that I think that Pisces and Capricorn share is that they have to be careful of being poor me, of getting sucked down into that deep water, right? And I don't know, there just seems to be a poor me component that they can get into, but if they get past that, I mean, these two signs are extremely powerful signs and completely
Capricorns
different.
can't be stopped, and
Mm-mm.
Pisces, in its exaltation, in its greatest point, is probably the most connected. The problem is that connection comes with a lot of doubt. Pisces is the most untangible of the sign. It doesn't deal in tangible things that you can touch and see and hold. And there's not a lot of words and actual things to deal to cope with the obscure emotions that they feel. And because there's no words for it and there's no way to touch it or get in contact with it, they doubt it a lot. But they have the most intuition of any of the signs, the absolute most. But they tend to not use it because they doubt the thoughts that they have, the feelings that they have, the gut reactions that they have. And Capricorn is grounded in like a sense of success and responsibility. So they get into that poor me phase when they try and the results aren't as impressive as their try. So it's on two different, it's in the state of reality for Capricorns and it's the state of the subconscious for Pisces. But it's kind of the same feeling.
Well, the opposite. Which sign or signs are the least chill? That yeah, can just consume a room. You know what I'm saying when they flame out.
Leos, Gemini, Sagittarius. Leos are going to do it in a much more royal way with dignity. You take away the dignity and it's Gemini and Sagittarius.
So you wouldn't want to anger those two on a good day, I take it.
So Sagittarius is friend shaped, but not necessarily friendly. You would expect aggression out of an Aries, certainly. You would expect revenge out of a Scorpio, definitely. You would accept that discerning, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed out of a Capricorn. Sagittarius blinds you with its anger. And Gemini tends to be very joyful. When that other twin comes into play, it catches you off guard.
Which one would of the signs would make the worst enemy?
Scorpio. Scorpios, my second choice would be Virgos. So when it comes to the Mars ruled signs, Aries and Scorpio, Aries is like a machine gun. If we're going to compare it to a weapon, because we're talking about the planet of war. It would just fires off a whole clip super fast and then the energy is exhausted. With Scorpio, it's a sniper sitting on a hill, very patiently, very calmly, waiting for that perfect shot. So if it's going to be a perfect shot, it's not going to be a flush wound. Virgo, if Virgo is angered, it will put in the work, not for revenge, but for karma. A lot of the other signs just sit back and let karma do its thing. Virgo's going to set up a to-do list on making sure it does its thing.
And you are so right about that to-do list. My husband is a Virgo. They are the most organized human beings on the face of the earth. And obviously, my influence is Scorpio. And so it's not, compared to him, I am just not that organized because I keep everything here. That's where I organize. So I
Mm-hmm.
know, my organization, but he's got the list and he can just click everything off. I mean, I'm glad one of us is, I mean, that way,
Well, there's
Um,
that part of that plays into the fact of the modality of your signs. So you're fixed water. You have a focus and a target and one situation. Virgos are mutable, so they can shift back and forth. Mutable earth, so shifting sands, compartmentalize very well naturally, where you have laser focus on one thing generally.
but does that tend to make immutable sounds less flexible in all areas of their life, or?
It depends. I mean, when we're talking about Gemini, we're talking about mutable thought because they're an air sign. So they have scattered thoughts, but physically they can be very clumsy. Um, if we're talking about the Virgo, compartmentalizing is great. Organizing to-do lists, emotions, not that high on the priority list of things to do. Sagittarius, paying attention, not. We're mutable fire. We shift with our passions and what we're interested in. And if we're not interested in anything that actually needs to be getting done, it's not going to get done. Then we have Pisces, which is shifting emotions and shifting subconsciousness. So they look like everybody else on the surface, but what's underneath is not. It's the deepest. It's the Marianas Trench. It's low.
I'm going to move from astrology just for a moment and ask you, what do you think is the number one issue that modern psychics, astrologers, mediums, and others who delve into the metaphysical and the supernatural, if you will, have to deal with now?
I'm never afraid of skeptics. What annoys me, and I tend to brush it off, because personally it doesn't bother me. But the thing that does bother me on the whole is one, the people that like the vibe and the lifestyle and are out there living it, but they're not really connected. They like the show and they dig in deep to the Hollywood version of witches and psychics and mediums and things like that. And they give people that genuinely just want to use their gifts to help others. And the second is the people that assume that we're all exactly like the Hollywood people. That when I do an astrology reading, it's based in nothing except for guesses until I get the right one, which is not how I function at all. I don't guess. I just tell them what I see And generally, it's exactly what it is. So then, like, I'll have clients sit down and they want me to fail with them because they want me to prove that I'm just going to go through a list of like topics that everybody goes through until I hit the nail on the head. And I'm like, I'm here to help you get something out of this reading. Don't sit down and hope I fail. Hope I help.
Hmm. No, and I agree with you. I was at a public reading once. I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and I had a business owner come and sit down, and I read for them. And then he brought over every member of his team that he had with him from his company over the course of that weekend. And he would sit there as I read for each and every one of them. And at the end of it, he said, "Well, I'm shocked." And I said, "About what?" He said, "Pat," he said, "I've been coming to these things for years." He said, "I just have an interest in it, and people at the office we talk about, and we come to a few of these a year." And he said, "And I have never had a psychic give a different reading." He said, "It is basically the same reading doctored up, so that there's slight differences, but basically it's the same message every time." And that surprised me. It really did, because it was years ago. But now, having been around for many years now, I realize that there is a truth to that some people get into this. Well, they're just charlatans. And I will just say it. They're charlatans. And like you said, it paints the rest of us with a really nasty brush, if you will. And there's a reason that they had like anti-psychic laws on the books, and still do in some areas, is because of that. And even today, there are cases. I just read one, gosh, a few months ago, about a man who had lost like $60,000 to a psychic who had said that the man was being cursed. So, folks out there, if you ever hear that you have been cursed and that the only person that can take that curse off is the person before you, and for a sum of money, run, do not walk for the exit.
I have my midheaven, which is your soul's purpose, in the ninth house in Pisces. So remember I talked about like the water and the deep connection to the spiritual and the higher self with water signs? That's where I'm at. But with my Sagittariusness, I call myself a spiritual warrior. And the thing that will set me ready to fight is that situation. Because real people that want to help aren't going to charge you any more than what your reading it costs. They're not going to give you advice and ignore your free will. Like if I tell somebody, and I tend to not go on to medical issues, but if I see something might become a problem, I'm like, listen, if something happens, something comes up, we're not waiting 2 weeks before we go to the doctor. Just go in, have it checked out. You get to make these decisions. You do your thing. Anybody that tries to take away your free will is not a good reader, and it drives me crazy. Anyone that messages you on social media and asks if you want a reader is a scammer. Or at least I do. I allow people to come to me. I want somebody to walk in a room where there's 50 other vendors and specifically say that they were drawn to me or that they felt like I could do something for them. That's a symbiotic relationship. I'm not the best reader out there. I'm not the only reader out there. There are other people that need you, that need the Connor sisters, that need Reiki more than they need a reading, that need a therapist over a reading, even though a lot of readings turn into therapy sessions. They need other things besides just me, and I want people to just instinctively know that I'm what they need, and or instinctively know that you're the person that they need, or that somebody else is the person that they need. I want people to be able to trust their gut to tell them what they need.
Yeah, because everybody to a certain level, or I shouldn't say everybody, but most people do have the gift of intuition. They simply do. It's like a God-given spark inside of us. And so always go to the person that draws you to them. All right. I always think it's such a failure when people are drawn again to the Hollywood hype rather than to the reader that they really do need to connect with. And not saying that all Hollywood people are not talented, because that's not true either, right? It's just the machinery around them sometimes, I think, that is off-putting, certainly to me. Uh, yeah, because you want your people, you want people in general to have the best experience and to receive from spirit the message that they were supposed to receive.
And sometimes they need a specific delivery system. I'm a harsh, no flowers truth delivery system. I'm not as brash when I'm dealing with clients as I am when I'm giving my friends advice, but because they know me. But there is a very, this is the truth. This is how things are. This is what you need to do to fix it. You need to decide if you're going to do that, or you need to make these decisions for yourself. I can't tell you what to do, but this is what is going on right now. You need to make those decisions. It's definitely not flowery. So when people, if I'll warn people, I'm like, listen, I'm very blunt, I'm very honest. When I see something, I have to say it. I'm like, if you can't, I'm not the reader for you. And most people are like, I need that. I love
Mhm.
that. I need somebody to tell me without any innuendos or pretty metaphors what's going on.
Right. If something is really super serious, I will always ask, how much do you really want to know? You know, how much do you want me to tell you? If I see something that is beyond the average discomfort, that could bring real pain, I will ask that, because I will tell you, I've had many people say, I don't want to know everything, but I do want to know, because they already know. A lot of people come to you. It's not for a new message, but it's actually to support, if you will, what they already know. They just need that extra knowledge that they are on the right path or making the right decision, or whatever it may be. And they know their situation better than we do as a whole, right? I, do you get messages, and I do this all the time. I get messages where I have no idea what I'm talking about, because the message is not for me. It's for the person that I give it to, and it doesn't make any sense to me, but it makes all the sense in the world to them.
I, at some point, I quit reading the cards and I quit reading the chart. And words just fall out of my mouth. It's nowhere in the birth chart. It's nowhere in the cards. And I just allow these things to come out. And I'll be like, I don't know why, but this. And when that happens, it's generally very relevant. Even if I try to second guess myself, I'm like, don't say that to them. That's weird. Like, I just do, because I'm like, well, I'm having this thought. I might as well release it.
Well, I like that. And I will tell you, I appreciate a blunt reader. That's the kind I like. I don't like punches pulled. I want to know what's going on. Stephanie, there's so much more we could talk about. I'd love to have you back on another time. We only got to talk briefly about your astrology and what you do there, but you also read runes and also osteomancy. That's the reading of bones, and you've created your own set of bones, which is very unique, right, from anything else that may be out there. Tell us about that.
If you go on TikTok or a lot of YouTube channels that do readings, they tend to have like 2 to 4 bones that are just like leg bones, that if they throw down, if they cross, it means something, if they lay together, it means something. But what I wanted to do is, if I was going to have things represent, I wanted other things. So for about, it was over a year and a half. It's like a year and 9 months. When I would see something that had like a specific meaning to me, that I felt like would be productive in a reading, I would pick it up and throw it in my bag with my bones. I have one of my children's teeth in there. So it was like the moment he kind of realized that that break in innocence where he's like the last tooth that fell out that said there's no tooth fairy. I have a beer bottle cap that I kept from high school when I was in my rebellion phase. There's some bells off a bottle of bubbles from a wedding I went to, and I knew it wasn't right and it wasn't going to make it. So there's all these little things that I have ties to that are like, to me, prominent memories that I thought would serve someone well in those representations of what they mean in readings. There's some shells and all kinds of things. Uh, I was actually on my way to book an event that me and some other ladies were hosting. And one of the ladies I was with, you know her, Mimi from Sacred Journey, she got um, a nail in her tire. And I ended up with a nail in my tire as well from when we were in the parking lot having this meeting. And I was like, for whatever reason, I was like, when my husband took my tire in to get it fixed, I was like, bring me back the nail. And that's in my bag of bones because that's, you're moving forward, but there's bumps in the road. There are going to be challenges. So these little things that, I can incorporate, I have kept for my bag of bones. So it's not just bones. It's my own personally crafted way of doing a much more intuitive interpretation of a reading. Astrology, I can give you dates, I can give you times, I can give you time periods. It's much more of the pseudoscience that astrology very is. The cards are very intuitive, but the bones, they feel different to me. It is only my intuition in that reading. So I do not bring them out all the time. It's only when I'm called to use them.
Interesting. I love that. The way you describe them, it's almost like the Pandora version of a bone set, to read. Just, yeah, the whole idea of all these different things that come together that can create in-depth messages.
And I mean, you can look up the metaphysical meanings of just about everything. I have 2 acorns in my bag of bones. Acorns are like that ancient wisdom, that connection to your genetics that bring, meanings and life lessons with them that for whatever reason, even though you haven't experienced it, you just know. So those are in there. And sometimes, these items will lay on top of each other, right next to each other, or look like they're not getting along. And that furthers along the message when I cast them, when I throw them onto my mat. So it just creates a deeper and deeper and deeper message the more I look at everything that's laying on the table.
Well, thank you, Stephanie, for sharing so much in such a short period of time. And how can people get a hold of you if they need to?
So I am one half of a double-sided coin. So my best friend and business partner, Shelly, and I are both the owners of Ascending Shadows. That is our business name. We are on Facebook. It's just Ascending Shadows. We are on Instagram. Our Instagram is Ascending Shadows 333. We have a website, just ascendingshadows.com. Facebook is probably the best way to get a hold of us immediately. We don't always check our email. We're terrible at the email. Facebook messages we've got, but emails, it might take a few days. If you want to book appointments, you can book like with me for readings. I have an entire menu of different types of readings. My virtual readings are both your birth chart analysis and oracle cards. It's a combo. They're about an hour and a half long, and you can book right on the website. I immediately get a text message. All of my available times and are on there and everything. But my other half, Shelly, she's a Reiki practitioner. She's a Reiki master. She's just now getting into pet Reiki. So you can book with her on the website as well. And if you ever have any questions, we also have a newsletter that you can send your email address and sign up for. I do the major astrology of the month in our newsletter, and then we'll pick like tea recipes or witchy tips, or remind everybody to blow cinnamon in your front door on the first of the month. And it also lists everywhere that we're going to be, the events that we're hosting, the events that we're co-hosting, the events that we're going to be at, and at we're locked in September and October. There's a haunted attraction just outside of Cincinnati in Williamsburg, Ohio. It's Cincinnati Fear Fest. The Cincinnati Fear Fest owns them, but it's All Hallows Eve, and it's an old Western town haunted attraction. The whole town is haunted. So they've got the old saloon and the old theater and the haunted trail. And we have a shop there, and we work every weekend there all through September and all through, well, till the first weekend of November when the haunt's over.
That sounds exciting and also unusual. I'm glad you've got the gig. It sounds awesome. It really does.
I have been to hundreds of haunted houses. I love them. So now incorporating what I do and love and passionate about with something else I love and am passionate about, because I love the haunted house, the whole vibe. And then I get extra spooky and extra connected, and it just feels good being in that surrounding and then I'm just in this small corner with everybody screaming and I'm doing readings.
All right, to our audience tonight, thank you for being with us. Without you, it's a very lonely place. To Stephanie, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Look her up. I will tell you that she has read my chart and she's amazing. She truly is. I give her a high recommendation. If you are interested, she is very knowledgeable and she has a way about her that's very honest, and I truly do love that. So, until next time, my friends, stay curious.